Happy Tuesday. Welcome back. So in this video, I think there's going to be a degree of passion, as is with all of my other videos, on topics that I feel very strongly about. Transparency. I want this to be an interactive video, so for you guys who are watching me live on Facebook, feel free to join in because we're going to have at it. I have a few things that I do want to talk about here in this video. Funny, I'm looking at this box here. I'm going to show you guys in a minute. That I got from Target the other day. They actually opened a brand new Target, which I learned replaced Barnes & Noble on 86th Street in Upper East Side, Manhattan. And I'm just like, I would have preferred it be still Barnes & Noble. I think the Barnes & Noble was there pre-pandemic. I moved in this neighborhood during the pandemic last year in October, so I missed out on Barnes & Noble. I would prefer Barnes & Noble to be there. But anyway, there's a Target, and I was just perusing just to check out the new Target. And I got this ovulation test kit. Now, it's funny because I actually just posted one of my results. I think, yesterday I posted it. And then I followed up hours later and posted like this meme. It was a beautiful kind of artistic picture of a woman, more so like a skeleton of a woman, where you can see through her body. She's sitting kind of in a meditative position, and you can see a baby head first, right, as if it's in the position to be birthed. So for me, that photo was very inspirational. I thought I'd share it. It's not of me though. I think oftentimes you guys think, like, people jump to conclusions and just assume things very prematurely. So people saying congratulations, they think it's me, and it's just like, I like to go with the flow. I like to go with the joke. So if you guys think it's me, then all right, it could be me, possibly in a spiritual realm, maybe in the future, but it's not me. People are saying like, congratulations. But I accept it though. But so I purchased this, and I purchased it because not that I have a partner, and I'm going to talk about love and sex chakra and procreation here in this video, as you guys can see what the title says. But I'm still single. And we'll talk about that too. But I got it more so, I guess, for myself to see where I am. Though I know when I'm ovulating. I think any woman who is very in tune with herself, her body, knows when her period is about to come on, right? When she's facing her premenstrual cycle, and also when she's ovulating. And science tells us that most women ovulate around about 14 to 18 days after the first day of their period, right? So let's say if your period comes on the 1st, typically you will be ovulating, or a woman will be ovulating 14 to 18 days after the first day of the onset of her period, her cycle, the start of her cycle. So, for example, and I've been tracking this for how many days now? How many days have I been tracking this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days. What a lucky number. So I've been tracking mine for 7 days. And my first day of my last period was on October 12th. So today is the 26th. And can you guys imagine that? Yes, it's that time. It's that time. And what this test does is basically it measures the luteinizing hormone within a woman. I knew about the LH hormone. This is not something new to me, of course. Anybody who studies biology and anatomy, pay attention in school, and you know your body, you know that women produce this hormone called the luteinizing hormone during her cycle. And this is not my first time actually taking an ovulation test. I've taken an ovulation test was it 2006, 2016, or 2017? One of those years, after I moved to Los Angeles and I was with my ex, right? My partner, who I dated for 3 years. It was a very intense relationship. Intense is an understatement, shall I say. And of course, we wanted to make a baby. We wanted to reproduce ourselves, but I think the universe, it was a universe that said no, like, no, now is not the time. And I know that, like, many of you guys can relate, where you may be in love with someone, you may have feelings for someone, you may like someone, right? And you want something, but it's just not meant to be. And I know why clearly it wasn't meant to be. It's just like, okay, great. You just don't want that kind of death sentence, shall I say. I want to be nice. I don't want to be mean, because I think that everyone is a good person at heart. I think we're all like good people at heart, but it's just, we weren't compatible. Let's just put it that way. We weren't compatible. So I did vlog that period where I actually was going through that testing cycle, ovulation test cycle, and I think I forget what I entitled that vlog series. I think I entitled it my pregnancy journey or something like that. But you guys can go check that out on my YouTube channel. I think my YouTube videos are pretty organized according to playlists and categories. So just check out the playlist. It's kind of far back though. That was like a couple years ago. But yeah, I did that before. And so this is my second time around. I am not in a relationship. Like I said, I am single. But I'm doing it for my own sake and just confirmation. Like I said, I already know. When I did it back then, I detected that I ovulate, I would say, I think 18 days out from the first day of my period. And clearly, I think that is pretty much succinct, because according to this test, right, when there are two lines, right, there's a control line to let you know that the test is working, and then there's another line that measures and reflects your level of LH hormone, right? And that's what you're looking for, the LH hormone line. And according to the intensity of that line, the darkness of that line is going to tell you the degree of surge, the LH surge, the hormone that a woman's body is releasing, right? So I did it today. I'm gonna show you guys. I may show you guys, or I may just talk about like my test results over the past 7 days. But today, this morning, I did it, yo. And I kid you not, and it's funny because it happened, this is the same thing that happened years ago when I did this test, where the actual test line, right, the LH hormone line, it showed up way before the control line showed up, like very quickly and very dark. And after, they say they want you to let the test sit for 10 to 15 minutes, right, so that you can get accurate result. Yo, it showed up very quickly and dark, and darker than the control line, which they say that that's when you are surging, right? Surging in the LH hormones. I'm just like, but I can feel it in my body though. It's consistent with what I feel happening in my stomach. And so the thing is, okay, so when you find that you have a high LH surge, such as myself today, they say within the next 24 to 40 hours is when your body will release the egg. It's basically time to start getting busy, right? So I posted my result, I think, from yesterday on 10/25, and it also showed that, you know, the lines were pretty much equivalent to each other in darkness, in color, which indicates that there's an LH surge. And people were like, congratulations. But yo, today, like I said, this line is darker than any other line that I have here, or then you guys can see my strips. Over the past 7 days, it's just like, whoa, amazing. So I am going to continue testing just because I want to see, like, okay, now that we're at the peak, I just want to see what it's going to be like when the LH surge declines, right? Just to make sure that these strips are accurate. You got to, it's kind of like testing the validity of the test itself, right? So I'm going to continue testing just to make sure what I'm seeing is true and correct, because leading up to today and yesterday, there were two lines that showed up, but they were kind of faint. And then it was yesterday when it actually became much more darker. And then today, definitely the test line is darker than the control line. So interesting stuff. But I wanted to begin talking about this because it relates to this whole thing about love and sex and procreation, right? It's like a segue. So, you guys know I've been on a dating scene. I've been on the dating scene to explore, to see what my options are. And I found this experience to be very telling, right? To say the least. It's been very informative. It's been very like, wowzers, right? And I can tell you guys about an experience I had recently. So I recently was chatting with this guy. You guys know I'm a storyteller, right? And sometimes you guys have no clue when I'm telling a story that is actually autobiographical, that actually happened, I experienced, or is completely made up. But this is true. So I met this guy, not face to face. I'm very kind of calculated, and I take precautions when it comes to just meeting guys. Like, and guys sometimes wonder. They ask me like, "Why are you single? You're very beautiful. You have all this potential. You have all this beauty and smarts and brains and all this good stuff, right?" And sometimes they assume, and I think this is the narrative that's going around, right, with this whole statistic, according to black men and black women, that there is a higher number, right, of black women to black men. And there's a low number of black men to black women. So, there are a lot of older, beautiful, successful black women who are single because, they don't have any options. And, I wouldn't go to say that necessarily. And I think oftentimes men love that statistic, which we know statistics can be very tricky. Because, like, where do you get that information from? Are you just assuming? You're just, like, making this number up? People, like, hold on to these statistics, so to speak, because it does something for them. It kind of, like, strokes the male ego, right? And it makes men feel like, they are desired. They're highly desired. They're highly wanted. And granted, I think we all are the prize, right? It's not to say that, the black man is more of a prize to the black woman than the black woman is to the black man. I think we're equally a prize. And I've come across a lot of men who struggle with finding the right partner. For me, I think my difficulty lies in my preference. And it's not going to change. And my standard for a man who I feel is my compatibility partner, right? I want to say my equal, because I don't think I will be equal to a man. I don't look at it like being equal in that sense, because I do have a standard and a desired preference for a dominant man, an alpha male, a man who is head of household, like your traditional man, right? That's just always been my preference. And I see where it comes from, because my dad is that way. My dad is like the king of his castle, right? He's 80 years old. He's always been that way. So why would I expect anything less than? And with that being said, I've come across a lot of different men. And I'm going to share with you guys about a recent encounter that I had. It wasn't face-to-face, though. It was just kind of like a chat and exchange with a guy that I met from a dating app recently, very recent, like this week recent. And we talked about several things. We were on the phone for a couple of hours, and I think sometimes when I do this with men, right, they feel very special. Like, oh my gosh, there must be something there, and it's just like, don't let it go to your head. I can be on the phone with anyone for hours, okay? I know what it takes to stimulate a conversation and have a conversation with anyone. So don't be misled, right? But they let that shit go to their head. And I be telling guys, listen, don't get comfortable. That is a problem though. But in their getting comfortable is good, because I allow men to feel comfortable so that they reveal themselves. It's part of just my nature, being Danielle, and just part of what I do professionally as a psychologist, as a therapist. It's just like I make people feel comfortable and they show themselves, right? And Maya Angelou said it best: when a person shows you who they are, believe them. Don't try to make up some scenario, some fictitious character of who you want them to be. Accept what they showed you, right? But I tell men this all the time, and they still fall in that trap. It's a good thing that they get comfortable, right? Because it's good for me. It shows me who they are. But for them, it's not good for them, because they're like, oh damn, she doesn't want to be with me anymore because she sees who I am very quickly. Like, yo, when I say it was our first conversation, I do this within the first conversation, right? And I think it can be confusing for men on the other side, because they're like, oh, we were vibing, we were having a good conversation, we were on the phone for hours. Yeah, we're going to be on the phone for hours because this is an interview. And so I've even been told this by a guy, like, oh, like, you're interviewing me. It feels like an interview, but it should go both ways. You should be interviewing me too as well. And it's just it's not about, I think they feel bad because they feel like, oh, well, they're not good enough. They're not adequate. And it's really not about being adequate as it is about, because if you look at it like, oh, well, I wasn't good enough for her, I'm inadequate, then that says a lot about your self-esteem, your self-confidence, your self-worth, your self-concept. And do you think a woman such as myself would be attracted to that, or any woman for that matter, right? And any woman who knows who she is and is content with who she is, right? Secure within herself. No, she doesn't want a man who feels insecure, who feels inadequate, who's always wondering, am I good enough? What did I do wrong? Like, no, you should be who you are. No one, of course, is fully self-actualized, right? And has fully self-mastered every aspect of who they are, right? We're constantly on a journey to improving ourselves and to discovering who we are. So, yeah, this encounter that happened recently, like I said, it was in person. It was, virtual or via phone, right? He made it at least to get my phone number. We exchanged contact information, but I feel like that doesn't mean anything. And let me take a little intermission here to say, which I was going to lead this video with sharing with you guys about a dream that I had about anybody who knows me, right, who truly follows me knows. Yeah, of course, Dr. Umar, yo. I was like, damn, should I talk about this dream or should I not? And then I'm like, I woke up feeling so refreshed. It's just so refreshing to, okay, let me tell you, this is how I see dreams. I know some people look at dreams as like unfinished business from the day. And it could be, but dreams can also be premonitions. And they have been for me too. They have been. So I think it can be both. It can be unfinished business, like your mind continuing to process like things that weren't fully resolved during the day or a previous day. Then it kind of just resurfaces itself in a dream, your dream, as you're sleeping. The mind is always working, right? Or it could be a premonition. And I had dreams that were premonitions where I dreamt it, and that's where deja vu comes. You like, in your waking hours, right, in your conscious state, and you're going about life, and you're like, damn, I've been down this road before. Like, I've experienced this before. This isn't new to me. And then you connect the dots and you make that connection. You're like, oh, I remember it was a dream that I had. I had this in a dream. So, this is not the first dream that I've had about Dr. Umar, y'all. And I know I watch his videos, right? But I wasn't even thinking about Dr. Umar before I went to sleep. I wasn't. I was watching other videos about other stuff. But he came to me in a dream last night. It's like we met for the first time in the dream, though it wasn't the first dream that I had about him, though. I'm gonna leave it at that. But can I say this? Every dream that I had with him in it, though, was a good dream. It was no bad energy, nothing bad. It was all good. But it was like a development. It's like this dream that I had more recently. And I would say maybe this is, I don't know, the 4th or 5th dream I've had over a span of years, though, since I kind of really been following him. You guys can go back and look at the first one I had. This was like years ago when I was in LA. And I made a video about it, talking about, I had a dream about Dr. Umar. I think a couple videos. But yeah, this more recent dream that I had last night, it was like a development, right? It was a new development, seemingly, in our spiritual connection. Because we haven't met in the flesh yet, right? Like in person. But we keep meeting like in this, I feel like it's a spiritual connection in the spirit realm. But with this dream, it was like moving further along, so that it felt like, okay, our connection was more solidified. This may sound weird, I think, to some of you guys who are like, this girl is weird. This girl is like on one, right? I swear to God, I'm not on anything. I'm just on high on life, and being in tune with myself and the universe. And so, I'm thinking about just the dream. My mind is just like, that's like, you have a good dream when you don't want to like get up. You just want to stay in bed. You want to go back to sleep and you want it to continue. Just like, I don't want the dream to end. But yeah, we were together and we had crossed paths. We were at some event. It was just like spontaneous, where we crossed paths. I knew he was coming, and boom, we crossed paths. He recognized me. I saw him, and then all of a sudden we were like a unit, and it was just natural. Yeah, it was weird. But anyway, I know I make posts and I say, like, listen, I made a meme actually just recently, and I said, which I've said over and over again, listen, if my husband doesn't have the passion for the black community like Dr. Umar Johnson, I don't want him. I get men asking me, what is my type of man? I'm like, for me to tell a man, right, on the dating scene, what my type is, sounds so redundant. Either you are my type or you're not, and vice versa. Either I'm your type or not. I feel like having a conversation about, what's your type? We're going to come to find out if we like each other. If you know yourself and you know what you want, and vice versa, which I know what I want and I know myself, that's going to be easy. And then we just have a conversation about, okay, listen, this is where we go. We part ways. This is where, our paths end here. It is what it is. It's like, I don't take it as a loss. I've done this so much, though. And I feel like, I don't feel bad. I think part of me, more recently, and reflecting back on my dating experiences or encounters, right, over the past, 4 years that I've been single. Because my last relationship ended with that partner, the partner that I was with for 3 years, who I met, by the way, in New York City. We lived together in New York. I moved to LA. He kind of like tagged along, with me and came with me out there to LA. But, you know, that relationship ended December 2017. So this December will make 4 years. It's just like through this period, though, I don't know. Have I broke hearts? I won't say I broke hearts, but it's just like, if it's not going to work, if I know that these guys aren't for me, we're not compatible, we're not compatible. And I know there's this saying that, oh, some guys, like when a guy, let's say, a guy is with a woman, right? And she's in love with that guy, let's say, and it doesn't work. It's like, oh, that guy made it harder for anyone else. I wouldn't say my ex made it harder for anyone else. I've always been very selective. I've always been this way. Many guys, like, I know women can relate. I'm not the only woman. You always get hit on by all kinds of guys from many varying different levels of socioeconomic status, right? From broke to rich. And what is richness, right? What is being a millionaire? It's just about what's right. We know what's right. You know what's right for you. You know what's not. It's not going to work. It's not going to work, right? It can work as a friend, possibly. It can work as an associate, maybe business partner. I don't know. But, nah. I think the more you know who you are, the more you get in tune with yourself, and possibly the longer that a woman stays single, and it could go for men too, possibly. It's just like you become adjusted to this singlehood life, right? You become adjusted to it, adapted, and I've adapted very well to singlehood, right? So that if I come across a guy, potential, that relationship, that dynamic has to like be mind blowing. It has to like it has to like outcompete my experience being a single woman, because I've established a degree of peace here where I am now. Not to say I don't want a partner, but it's just like, come on, it has to be right. It has to be divine. And I speak to the universe all the time. I'm like, listen, if it is meant, I know people call it God, but I speak to the universe, which I believe is kind of a reflection of God, right? The all. And I say, if it's the universe's will, if it's meant to be, then the universe knows me. The universe knows what I like. Then it would align that type of person with me if it's meant for me to procreate, right? Which I believe it is. Like, I think that'll be a beautiful thing to be a mother, to experience motherhood and pregnancy and delivery and raising children, and yeah. So going back to this recent encounter, right? This chat with, and feel free, you guys, to chime in. You guys are mighty quiet. The guy, like, he came off over the phone very astute, knowledgeable. Of course, you have to be. That's like kind of prerequisite to even have a conversation with me. Has his own place, independent, right? No children. But as the conversation developed, there were a lot of red flags. And this is what I want to talk about here in this video. I kind of use my personal experiences and encounters, right, as teaching moments, as lessons to build upon in my videos. I've done this. Look at my past videos. You see, this is nothing new with me. And so, let me say some of the red flags I saw, right? And I don't look for red flags, but sometimes, like, you try to ignore it, right? I'm like, I ignored it, but it's like, it's hard to ignore. It's like, okay, it's speaking to me, right? He keeps saying things, and it's hard to ignore. It's just like, And I thought about it before I decided, like, I don't want to talk to him. I just know it's just not going to work, right? So, typical in getting to know a potential partner, you kind of talk about your interests. People talk about their favorite color. That's not the kind of conversation I like to have. I even made a post about that. I was like, listen, guys be asking, what's your favorite color? That's so elementary. Favorite color, and then y'all gonna get on the post and try to explain away, like, oh, well, it's probably because he's wanting to know what kind of gift to get you, and this. Cut it out. We need to talk about something that is important, and I put it out there because guys don't be knowing where to go with me. They say I'm hard to read. They don't know how to approach me. They don't know which direction to go, and I get it. I understand like their level of discomfort, uncertainty. Though they don't want to like take a risk because they feel like, okay, if they say something or throw something out there, they're gonna lose me completely, right? So they just like play it on the safe side and be talking about very surface level bullshit. I'm just like, mix me with the small talk, right? I'm 38 years old, like, and you're the same age. Let's just have a conversation, a real conversation. And so it came up where I mentioned, we were talking about like compatibility, and I said for me, yeah, we're talking about like what we want, right? And I said for me, it's about finding someone, okay, of course, to grow with, right? But what kind of person is this person that I want to grow with and build with, in terms of a family, spiritually and financially, right? Is we have to be spiritually aligned. That's important. Spiritual alignment, right? And I say not only in spiritual, right, but politically. That's what God is as, y'all. It's funny. So he was like, oh yeah, I'm with you on the spiritual. I'm with you on that. With, I think, did I say financial or something like that? Financially stable. He was like, I'm with you on the spiritual. I'm with you on the financial. But the political. And then he started to go, I'm not really into the right wing versus left wing. I think, is what he said, I think they're part of the same bird. So, I have a way of being very witty and sarcastic, yo. And kind of like sharp tongue sometimes. Right? I'm just blunt, straight to the point. So I'm just like, well, anyone with political consciousness knows. I kind of got annoyed by that. I'm like, for him to even assume that, for me to say I'm interested in someone who has political consciousness, right? And then he goes talking about right wing versus left wing, Republican, Democrat. How did that come to your mind? How do you associate that with political conscious? Okay. So, I had to be clear. I love clarity. So I said, absolutely. Like, it's not about right wing versus left wing. Anyone who has political consciousness knows that. It's not about that. And I had to make it clear. I mean, it's already stated on my profile that I'm a Pan-African, right? And then he said he had to come back. I'm like, well, I'm pro-black. I'm like, okay, well, as long as we're on the same page here, right? Because I think some things should go without saying. But sometimes you have to be clear. So that was like our online conversation. And then our conversation moved offline because he was like missing some of my message. He was like being confused about what I was saying. He wasn't reading properly. Should have known right then, yeah. So I initiated and stepped out and proposed, like, listen, clearly sending text messages back and forth isn't the best means of communication. I feel like that should be a guy doing that, though. Some things I feel like, come on, like you should know how to lead, right? Which I feel like, yo, I just feel like that to me is a turn off. But I get it. Some guys just, they're fucking free cortex, prefrontal cortex just kind of shuts down, and so they're not able to like reason and think clearly, right? They get googly eyed, I guess. I don't know. And so I have to think for them. And so we exchanged contact information, and we were talking eventually after I got home. And he's like, oh, can I call you? And I'm like, I thought that was the point of us exchanging contact information. I thought that was the point of also you telling me to let you know when I got home. I'll let you know when I got home. And then now you're messaging me saying, can you call? All right, whatever. I'm like, yes. Thought that was the point of me telling you when I got home. That's just the kind of person I am, okay? I don't know. I just sometimes get annoyed by like tiptoeing behavior from men. It's a difference between tiptoeing and being calculated, being sensitive to a woman, right? I don't think he's being sensitive. I just think he's just being like, he's not sure of himself. So anyway, and it's funny because it's like times when he should be sure, he's not. But when there are other times when I'm just going to bring up too, where he was like too sure of himself and it was a fucking turn off, right? So we had the conversation and he brings it up again about, yeah, I can vibe with the spiritual, alignment, us kind of being aligned in that way. I can vibe with, having, being financially stable, but in terms of like political, like for him to bring it up again, for me was a red flag. Like this is on the phone now. We're having this conversation and it just seems like if we don't see eye to eye there, because I even gave an example. I gave him an example when we were having the conversation online. I say kind of like the mindset of Dr. Umar Johnson, character flaws aside. Because when I reference Dr. Umar Johnson, people are like, oh, Dr. Umar Johnson, like they try to attack his character, and I'm like, listen, we all have character flaws. So for me, I see past that, right? It's about a person's mind. Where's your mind? And a lot of men's mind, they're not there. So it makes sense while I'm single, and on top of that, why many black women just will not submit. You just know. And I like this guy that I follow. He's a tribal leader. He has multiple wives, practicing polygamy. And he said this in his recent live video. They were talking about the issue of, black women submitting to black men. And I'm glad that he said this, yo. It's just like music to my ears. Yes, he gets it. Finally. I think there was a point where he, sometimes black men don't get it about the black female submission and the resistance for black women to submit to a black man. But he said this just the other day in his live video. He said, I can understand why, the black women have a issue submitting to black men because look at the black men that are out there. Look at these freaking, not to say all, right? Not to make a general blanket statement to put all black men in that category, but there's an overwhelmingly, unfortunately, number of black men who just, you're asking for submission? You're asking for submission. But they don't know. They don't even know themselves, right? They're not like in tune with who they are. They're not there. They're not conscious. Parallel to that video that I saw the other day with this tribal leader talking about the barriers for black women to submit to black men. Not to say we don't want to. Of course, I think we have a desire. We want to be led. Don't get it mistaken. Black women, all this whole facade of being a strong black woman. Like, fuck, we've been strong for too goddamn long. You think that's what we want to carry? No, it's a matter of the state of the black man and the black woman, the state of the black community, yo. Things are out of order. And to zoom out of the context of what we're talking about between the black man and the black woman and to look at it from a bird's eye view, right? We'll see that there are other systems at play that negatively impact this dynamic, creating such dynamic of fucking misalignment between the black man and the black woman. Tension, confusion. There's disorder, and it didn't just pop out of nowhere like, oh, we're in 2021 and boom, it just happened. This is like generations, hundreds of years, stemming from many things that were at play, many laws that were put into place to disrupt the functionality of the black family. Not to blame everything on that though, right? The system. Because sometimes we try to put the whole, no, we got to take our own individual responsibility. Unfortunately, we got to take our own responsibility to solve the problems that the environment in which we live in help to create, unfortunately. And so another red flag that came up, aside from him having this opposition towards political consciousness, which is like, yeah. And he's mentioning, oh, I have a white female friend. And nothing wrong with white female, like, friends or friends, but it sometimes makes you wonder, like, oh, okay. You know, he's in the first. I met an older Muslim guy who mentioned a white female friend. And you can kind of tell, like, there's a certain, like, if of women, we listen closely to men, black men speak. You can tell the mindset of that man, right? You can tell what influences he's under. Especially with a lot of movements occurring at the same time. MGTOW, men going their own way. Being promoted by the likes of TS. Life coaches like TS. I'm not saying his name. You just gotta beware. I've come across men like that. It's just, ugh. I know black men similarly talk about black women aligning with feminism. And that's a very toxic movement too, especially what it has become. We know what it stemmed from. Women wanting to gain equal treatment, fair treatment as men, spearheaded by white women specifically. And then black women somehow found their way, sucked into it, and aligned with these, you know, the enemy, so to speak. When you think about, like, all this is happening under the umbrella of racism, racial oppression, white supremacy. Let's not pretend that those things don't exist, okay? So another, I think the blaring red flag for me, and it kept coming up, is sex. And as it relates to this video, right, I want to talk about sex, is that nothing wrong with sex. Sex is natural. But for me, being a logical, thinking, conscious woman, in tune with herself and the universe, it's like, it has to make sense. It has to have meaning. Sex in and of itself, to me, is pointless. And oftentimes men lead with that. You know, I know that men are visual creatures, right? Asking a woman, oh, does she have an ass? That's offensive. That's very offensive. Do you have an ass? Do you watch porn? Talking about things like that. Granted, we covered many different topics, and that conversation was almost 4 hours. It was headed towards 4 hours. Because I like to get an idea of who this person is that I'm going to be dealing with to see if it's even worth it, right? And it was going good. But, you know, you give a person the benefit of the doubt, right? So it came up, and I'm like, all right. And I kind of let them, like, listen. I let people know, listen, that's a turnoff for me. It's a turnoff when men go to sex, right? Anything sexual. It started off with him kind of easing. It didn't go, like, overtly towards talking about sex. It was more subtle. So he asked, oh, what do you think about hair pulling? And I said, it sounds like you're being sexual. What's a sexual question? Hair pulling? You know, it's sexual. Granted, I'm into BDSM. I identify myself as a submissive woman. A masochist. I like a lot of different things as relates to BDSM. I made many videos on that. But I don't know you, and you're asking me about hair pulling? Like, this is our first conversation. I just feel like men should take note of this. who are you dealing with? If you're dealing with, let's say, it's different. Okay, now, it had already been established for me in that conversation with him what I want. And it's on my profile, right? What my end goal is, right? We talked about our end goals. And it seemed to be that we were aligned. But men have a way of finagling their end goals, right? Their intent for dating to appease a woman, right? They put together these words in a framework that resonates with what she wants when really that's not really what they want, right? Oh, I want someone I can grow with and have fun with and experience great things with. But that's kind of speaking very generally about, that's not specific. Because I feel like that's a very direct question. What is your intent? What is your end goal? And I know for me, obviously I want a fucking family. That's the fucking end goal, right? Now, there's a means to achieving that, of course, which requires building, getting to know a person, spending time together, growing together, which he mentioned. So it's just like they think that a woman is not smart enough to be able to key in on what they're actually saying, right? And how it fits in with the grand scheme of things. You're saying words that obviously can be considered to be in alignment with my end goal of wanting a family and kids. Family being marriage, obviously, of course. Things have to be done decently in order with me. By saying, oh yeah, I want a partner I could grow with. But do you want kids though? Do you want a wife? It's like, and it's not to say that, oh, a woman is trying to push these ideas of marriage onto a man on the first conversation, right? No. But it's important that we want, isn't it important, at this age, it's not like we're 19 years old talking about this. We're in our 30s. And by the way, another red flag, his ass fucking lied about his age. His profile said he was like 37. I asked him, I said, how old are you? He asking me first, he asked me, oh, what's your age? And I say, my age is on my profile, and everything on my profile is true and correct. That made me wonder, what is your age? For you to be asking me, trying to confirm my age after we got on the phone and had this phone conversation, I flipped it back. What is your age? Because on your profile it says 37. Are you 37? And he paused. I'm like, yo, this is what I'm saying. I don't have time for bullshit, right? Why lie about your age? And that's very telling, because within the MGTOW movement, men have this thing, oh, as a woman ages, she decreases in value. If that's the case, right, wouldn't it be the same for men? And then men try to say, these MGTOW men, oh, no, we increase in value. Bullshit. Why? If that's the case, if you increase in value so much as a man, why are you hiding your age? Why lie about your age on these dating sites? Because it's bullshit, okay? It's bullshit. I'm just saying, though. A woman would have to bring out this, right, part of herself, which every human being has, right? And it's called simply just being able to call bullshit. If a man was forthcoming, just he says 37 on his profile, and he's 45, and who's to say, who knows if he's really 45? Guys, why lie about this? 45. And then you're gonna get defensive. I'm asking questions. We're getting to know each other, and you're like, oh, you're nosy. I'm nosy now. I'm like, I can hang up the fucking phone. We don't have to be... What the fuck? My time is very valuable. Let me make that clear, okay? Let me be fucking clear about this shit. My time is fucking valuable. You express interest in me. I don't reach out to guys. I'll let guys approach me, right? But in all fairness, to protect myself, of course, I'm going to ask the right questions. We're getting to know each other. Don't say a woman is nosy for asking questions. Nosy? For questions that she should have the answer to be able to make a decision if she wants to continue with you or not. It's not just your decision. for men to think, oh, a woman is single by force. No, a woman can choose. Woman has a choice in the matter. But yeah, to the whole question about hair pulling, and I'm just like, yo. Let me take a break. I'm gonna pour me I made a smoothie. I'm about to pour me a smoothie, but it's just like, yo, seriously. I mean, we can talk about hair pulling, but I don't think that we've reached that point yet, right? Asking me these kind of questions that you know will lead into a more intimate sexual conversation. I'm like, come on. It doesn't have to be this way. Asking about porn, I'm like, I just get turned off. And I let them know, I let guys know, like, I get turned off when you're talking about sex, right? Now, of course, if you're asking, like, matter-of-fact questions, like, you know, when's the last time you had sex, for the purpose of just getting an idea, right? Because I asked him the same thing. I initiated that question, actually. That was my question. I asked him, like, I'm curious, like, when was the last time you had sex? And he had to hesitate. Then he was like, oh, 2 weeks ago. I'm like, listen, yo, what you do with your dick is what you do with your dick. But be honest, though. Why lie? For me, last time I had sex was like fucking December, January. So we're going on a whole fucking year. And I did that purposefully because, and it might be much longer. It might be much longer. It's just, you get over it. It's just like, come on. For me, like I said, sex for me has always been a sacred thing. It's spiritual. I think it's important to know why we have sex. What drives you? When I talk to men and I ask them the question of why or what motivates them. Hi, Sapphira. Feel free to join in if you like. But I ask men like the question of what drives you? What's behind it? And they're like, I don't know. They have this thing that they don't know. For me, it's just like, you should know though. That to me is a turnoff when a man doesn't know. Like I asked him, he was talking about his previous relationship. And he said it was a year long. It ended, I think he said last year. And he's like, oh, but I didn't love her. I'm like, why though? Not why in the sense of I'm judging you, like I'm a judge in front of, in your court, having to testify why. I asked the question why for your own sake, for you to have an awareness. Awareness, like self-awareness is sexy. Men jump to sex, right? They jump to this idea of fucking and having sex, not understanding that for a sapiosexual like myself, it starts with the mind. If you can get in my mind, you can have as much sex with me as you want. Connect with me on that level first, though. They don't know how to do that. They can't do that. They're not an equal match to me to be able to do that. So hence, my box is closed, okay? I'm not fucking no goddamn body. Yeah, I talk about procreating and I'm taking these ovulation tests just for my own sake. Make sure my shit work. I know it's working. You agree with me? Yes, for real. And it's just like, but I'm not laying in a bed with a man who doesn't have self-awareness, right? Because for me, we're getting too old for the bullshit. You need to know things. You need to know yourself. Right? We don't want to keep perpetuating these cycles, repeating toxic patterns, right? You were in a relationship, such as myself, right? Let's say hypothetically speaking, you've been in a relationship, right? And you know that relationship was toxic, right? You don't want to go down that same path, right? So it's important that you learn some things about yourself through that past relationship. I've had 4 years since my last relationship ended to dive deep into myself and to know myself. If you ask me a question about myself, I will be able to supply the answer to it. Now, of course, there can be hesitation with the answer depending on how much I want to show you, right? Because intimacy is into me, you see. And so I asked him that question about, okay, well, why wasn't there love there between him and her? And he says he don't know. I'm like, okay, I think you do know. So the answer is in you. You know. Maybe you haven't come to an awareness of it, but you know. And then he kind of laughed, and I say, actually, I think you do know. Meaning you are aware. Maybe you just don't want me to know, right? Because that creates a degree of vulnerability for you. But to me, that's also another red flag, though. When a guy wants me to be vulnerable, and I know that I have a way of being very vulnerable, clearly. I'm a vlogger, right? I have a way of being very vulnerable. But I think it's doing myself injustice, and I have to set my own boundaries in dating. If I know that my degree of vulnerability is up here, but his is here, that's unequal. Now I'm setting myself up for failure. So I'm constantly gauging the degree to which a man, potential partner, is willing to be vulnerable with me, right? And if you're hesitating, you're only going on the surface talking about your past relationship, but not willing to go deep about it and to really dive deep within the hidden shadows of yourself. But meanwhile, you expect that from me, and I'm willingly sharing things with you. It's like, I'm going to hold back too. And then we can both just be guarded, right? I have no problem putting up a guard. I do that very well, very naturally. I'm pretty sure anyone watching this can do the same thing. So, is that the intent? Going back to the intent, right? The intent is to find someone to fall in love with, to love and grow with and be intimate with and da da da. Okay, that's the intent, right? But you're doing things counterproductive to that intent. Then you're wasting my time and your time as well. He's like, oh, you're smart. You think? You thought I was dumb? Like, some of the things that people let come out their mouth, yo. I'm like, do you realize the things you're saying is kind of insulting to me? All right? It's not so many times I'm going to take insult from a guy that I don't know, right? I don't know you. We don't have a connection. I don't have an attachment to you. So I can easily say, fuck off. I don't know you. Disappear. You know? I like to give guys a chance, so I feel like, okay. And looking at myself, I'm like, am I being too, like, are my standards like too stringent? Am I being too stringent with men where I'm like, I cut them off just too quick? Maybe I should just be a little bit more patient. Like, I ask myself this, right? Feel free to chime in, you guys. I ask myself this because it's just like, I do this a lot. I perfected it, yo. I perfected it. This smoothie is good, by the way. This is baby spinach, ginger root, mandarin oranges, cranberry juice, and banana. But I perfected it because I'm like, I don't got time for the bullshit, man. Know how to connect with the woman here. And what turns me on is a man who is self-aware. So that if I ask a question, which many of my questions are kind of like getting to know why. Duh, I'm a psychologist. A lot of people know what the fuck that is, though. They think that I prescribe medication. Like, oh, you work with crazy people, you prescribe medication. No, psychologists don't prescribe medication unless they live in one of 5 states, I think, that do have prescription privileges, but not here in New York. That's not my interest anyway, though. I'm not really a proponent of psychiatric medication or psychotropic medication. But they don't know, they have no clue what psychologists do. He's talking about astrology. Find me one psychologist who's into astrology. Not to say that they don't exist, but it's kind of contradictory. I talked about this in my other video too, about how there was like, I noticed kind of like a correlation between education, right? The higher up education in terms of, you know, PhD, MDs, you find this. It's consistent across the board. The higher up in education, it's just like the less you find them relying upon religion, right? Kind of stepping away. Not listen. And I think when people hear that, like, oh, well, because you're evil. No, it's just because you ask questions. People who are like intellectuals, right? And you're around other people who are also very astute, you begin to think, right? You come out of the programming that you were in growing up as a child when you were force-fed religion, and you begin to think critically and ask questions. And through this questioning, using your brain, you begin to see some discrepancies, some inconsistencies, some things that just don't make sense in religion. And then you kind of put it to the side. It's not to say, okay, you throw it in a garbage can and you just, out, religion you go. You kind of put it aside, right? Like, put it over here for a second. You know what I'm saying? As you begin to incorporate all of this new information with the old information. Try to put it all together to make it make sense. But it's like, yeah, the same is can be said about astrology. He's asking me about, oh, what's your sign? I'm like, listen, you can't read me based on a fucking sign. I told him I was a Libra. He was like, oh, he got really excited. Oh. I'm like, what's the excitement about? Then he finally said, oh, my mom and my dad, they're Libras. I'm like, okay. That don't mean shit. Trust and believe it. You can't read me based on a fucking astrology sign. That's silly to think that you can. People like astrology enthusiasts, they get frustrated trying to do that with me. It's just, you can't. Just get to know me. I can tell you about me more than you can think you can read me. And so yeah, it was like, that's a turn off. I'm telling him, like, that's not what we do as psychologists. So astrology, that's like a pseudoscience. But anyway, so yeah, that's just a turn off. It's just like, I like men who are self-aware, know who you are, and know what motivates you. And alongside that, I also wanted to mention, I had another conversation with a friend of mine who wants to be dominated. I don't know if he's going to see this. Sometimes I'm hesitant to say things. I'm like, who's going to see this? I pre-record live my videos on Facebook, right? But then I re-upload them to YouTube. And YouTube, I think I get much more views on YouTube, my YouTube videos, than I think on Facebook. You just never know. Never know when you see them. But it's just like, I feel like people who are connected to me, right? Who I would call a friend anyway, already know me. They should know me. They know my mind. They have access to my mind. So whatever I say in the video, I can say to that person. And I probably already said to that person. But yeah, it reminds me of a conversation I had with this friend. And he's like, he wants to be dominated, right, by a woman. And I'm like, curious, is like, why? We're talking about submission, right? We're talking about domination and submission. He's wanting to get into my mind. And I share my mind. Because I know myself. I can share parts of myself, many parts of myself, because I know myself, right? I do get upset, though, when I kind of flip the question back on the other person and they're like, I don't know. And that's like kind of the extent of our conversation. It's just like, what? I like to go deep. Don't tell me you don't know. Because I know why I want to be dominated. I know what drives my desire, my fantasies within BDSM. But you don't know? You don't know. And then it's just like, to me, it's not knowing that's the issue. It's not even wanting to know, right? Do you not want to know? Or thinking that, oh, I have the answer. Oh, I can crack open your brain because I study psychology and I can just give you the answer. No, you're going to find the answer through your own self-searching. I can assist by posing certain questions to help you arrive at a deeper understanding of what drives your desire to want to be pegged, fucked by a woman, dominated, whipped. But for us just to talk about that, right? We could talk about BDSM activities, right? We could talk about sex. But it's no fun to leave out the psychological aspect of it. I like a layered conversation in depth, right? Add more depth to it. Like the guy I was just talking about. He's talking about, oh, what porn videos. You want to talk about, oh, what activities BDSM. I'm just like, I'm not talking to you about this because what's the relevance of it? There's no relevance to talk about what kind of BDSM activities I like to do because I don't even see that it's going to be, it's not even relevant. It's not relevant. Why? Because I don't even know if I'm interested in you anymore. Like, I feel like people need to stop jumping the gun and just go with the flow. And I feel like that's the issue of men getting too comfortable, so to speak, right? Because they're like, oh, she's in a good mood. She's laughing with me. So, oh, I can go there. I can ask her what's her favorite position without ever having met her face to face. I can ask her what's her favorite sex position because, oh, she's laughing. No, I feel like that's very inappropriate. It's very inappropriate. And it's also equally inappropriate for what happened to me the other day. I went out, I was invited out, and this friend assumed because I didn't send a good night text until like 4:30 that, oh, I'm getting laid. That to me is an insult. It's like that's what's going through your mind. You make the association, oh, I don't respond to your text right away, right? Oh, I must be doing something with another guy. That's your train of thought. To me, that's very problematic. We're talking about love and sex chakra and procreation. And I'm 38 years old and people ask the question, why am I single? Nah, man. No, I have a problem. Yes, I have a problem with that. And I would prefer to explore that train of thought, right? Motherfucker don't want to go there, though. Oh, you don't want to explore your train of thought. That's why I'm single. Because for a man expects a woman to submit, and I admitted the other day that men and women submit. Believe it or not. What is submission? First of all. See, y'all got these cookie cutter conceptualizations of what you think submission and dominance is. Being tough. Oh, I'm dominant. I can fuck a woman hard. I'm dominant. Those two are inseparable. Submission and dominance are inseparable. To lead or to dominate, you have to have a degree of submission within you. This is human nature. There's no extreme. You can't live on one extreme or the other. Even masters within the context of BDSM, who own slaves, still have to submit. There's no other way around it. You have to submit. And through that submission, you not only learn about the other person, you learn about yourself. Come to a deeper understanding of who you are. As a dom submitting to a woman, you don't submit to a woman in the way that a woman would submit, though, right? So that's still how you can maintain your masculinity. Because I know men, especially men who are very alpha or rooted in their masculinity, they don't want anything that's coming upon them that's going to threaten their masculinity, right? No, that's why we need another word for, I guess, submission when a man submits, right? We need more words in the vocabulary relating to this topic so that It doesn't come off as a threat for men, right? But there is a degree of submission that a man has to take. You want a woman to just be vulnerable, sharing her innermost parts. But then when you're asked a question about something deep within you, oh, now you're playing ignorant, you don't know. But if you want to build intimacy, right, you want to lower her guard. Do you know your vulnerability? This is how it works. The dominance and submission works. For those who don't know. You should know this, though. But a lot of people don't have good interpersonal skills to know this, though. They would never reach this point. You want to know how to lower a woman's guard. You lead. You lead by example. So that which what you are expecting of her to do, which is to have a lower guard, to be relaxed, to be trusting, to submit, you have to demonstrate that as the man. You do it. Men who have charisma, men who got the gift of gab, they know what I'm talking about. They demonstrate that. And then you see in your leadership of that, your demonstration of that, the woman reciprocates. It's just a natural occurrence. She's just like, wow, it happens like fucking magic. But you have to demonstrate that. And if you demonstrate the opposite, where you're guarded, defensive, right, being when asked questions, the same thing is going to happen. And then this same guy, right, I'm telling you guys about, that I was having this exchange with this week, he says, and he's not the only one, he says, women are so confusing. He was like, they're so complicated. That's a red flag. When you're a man talking about a woman that's complicated, confusing, and he goes to compare, even UFOs are not as complicated as women. Like, I get UFOs, he was naming different things, right, that are kind of far-fetched and difficult to understand, right, beyond kind of comprehension. But he was like, but the woman, though, I just don't get. I'm like, you don't get women because you don't know yourself. You're talking about yourself. All these men that want to be like, point fingers at women this, women that. You're talking about yourself. You don't get yourself. When you come to an awareness and understanding of who you are, then you can get women. Then you can exist with women. They have some unresolved issues. Clearly. It's very clear. That's why I ask questions of why. Men want to talk about they want to be dominated. But what is it though? Let's get to know who you are. We can still enjoy these sexual activities. It's not to say just because I have a understanding of what drives me to want to be put in bondage and beaten by a man, just because I understand the underpinnings, the psychological, developmental underpinnings of that desire, is going to just eradicate the desire. No. That shit is going to be there. I made it very clear in the previous video. I still have that desire. I've seen a psychologist. I've done therapy. I've done the work. I still want it, though. It's not going to take it freaking away. Right? It did make me more like, more calculated, more cautious about it, though. And I think that's what I want to enlighten other people with, right? And I've done like these little consultation videos. People email me talking about their cuckold fantasies, and we're talking about I have to use this phrase that someone kind of threw at me about mudding the waters, but we're talking about muddy waters. We're talking about an arena that is very risky, right? So you just don't jump in it. You have to know yourself, know what you're getting yourself into, right? So that you can protect yourself. You can take safety precautions for yourself and others who are involved in these activities that you're engaging in. So that's the reason why. I can tell you the reason why I choose to do anything, right? And the reason why I ask questions to know why or what motivates a person. Like, why is that even important? Someone may say, why do you need to know why I want to get pegged? Why do you want to know why I want to get dominated? Why do you want to know why I didn't fall in love with my ex? Because it matters in the here and now. We're talking about self-awareness. So you're not going around blaming the other person for your own fucking mishaps. And you can own responsibility for what put you in this position. You're not playing the victim. And I'm going to say this and I'm going to go. Hearing that guy's like, because I listen to what people say, not only that, but how they say it, and I can just get the pattern of his narrative, painting himself as a victim. His whole language that he used was just him victimizing himself, painting this picture like he's a victim. And you got to be careful. And Dylan, I said this before, be careful when you, let's say, you're going through this interview phase of getting to know a partner, potential partner, and you can hear the way they frame stories, and it sounds like they're the victim. Be careful, because it won't be too long before you're the culprit. You become their next culprit. They start to blame you. I'm like, nah. And I nip it in the bud early on. So yes, it's important for me to find, if you want to say my equal or greater, I like to say greater. Greater in the sense that, of course, I'm very aware of this power dynamic that I prefer to exist between myself and a potential male partner. So instead of saying my equal, I like to think of my potential partner, my man, as my greater. My greater self, my higher self. Oh, I don't know. Not that I'm lower, but I position myself lower because I prefer, I want to, and submission is a gift only for the deserving. But he has to be smarter than me. I don't want to outsmart my man. And this guy, my other friend, right, is trying to, like, he's telling me about his fantasies to want to be dominated. And it's like, oh, have you thought about switching? Seeing yourself as dominant? I mean, of course I can dominate a man. That's easy. I don't want to, though. I just don't. Would I? I have. I've been in a relationship where I was the dominant one. I said this before. I just don't want to. I said, unless, though, because there's always exceptions to the rule, right? Unless it's like my empire and I have multiple men that I'm dominating and it serves a greater purpose. Everything has to have a purpose attached to it. It's just not just to do it because, oh, he wanted to be dominated and he wanted to be fucked by a woman with a strap on. How does that serve any greater purpose? Make it make fucking sense, okay? See, people be coming at me thinking I'm vain, and I'm just like, I just can't. Y'all can do the vanity shit, okay? Laying up, fucking, just have, like, what does that do? And then you're just chasing after the wind because you're just needing to be sexually gratified, but your underlying need is still not being met, right? So you go back. That's why people just become sex addicts. They keep going back and they're chasing something. And you're trying to you want to get fucked. You get fucked. That's not good enough. You just keep fucking this person, that person, that person, that person, that person, that person. And it's still not being met. You're not happy. I could go on and on this topic. But I think I'm going to end it here. Just know. And I tell men this. Listen, I'm a special kind of woman. I know my worth. And that's one, like, that's a good thing to hold on to. Knowing who you are. Yeah, that's a good place to be in, yo. Just, knowing your worth. Knowing who you are. Because you just don't settle. And you feel complete by yourself. And knowing who you are and feeling that sense of completeness, just being by yourself, you can't settle for anything less. Because then it's just like, okay, that thing that you connect yourself or attach yourself to that is less, is going to now be a burden for you. Hell no. No. It's going to be a liability. You don't want liabilities, you want assets. Feel free to leave your comments below. Share this video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Love you guys. Oh, I forgot to do my smooch, I should say. Peace.